Yo, what's up guys, Alf here, and today I'm going to be doing a full in-depth deck breakdown of the historic Temur Battlecry Devotion deck that I've been doing really well with on the ladder recently. As you can see from the screenshot here, I'm currently 26-8 with this list, so it's been performing really well for me so far, and I'm also in the middle of writing a full in-depth deck guide article about this deck for MTG Zone Premium that'll have a bunch more details about the deck, you know, tips and tricks of how to play it that I probably won't have time to get to in this deck guide video, as well as talking about the sideboard, you know, specifically for best of one, where you only get 7 slots for your Calm Wish board. So bunch of extra details. If you're an MTG Zone Premium member, keep your eyes open for that. It should be out in the next couple days, and I'll have a link to it down in the description once it does go live. But anyway, with that all out of the way, like I said, this is my historic Temur Battlecry Devotion deck. So as the name suggests, this is a new variant of Devotion built around this new card from the latest set, Temur Battlecry. So when I was looking through the set before it came out, even though this is a 3-color card, this synergizes so well with a bunch of stuff that Devotion wants to be doing naturally anyway, right? It's a 4-power creature, so it turns on Fanatic, draws you a card off Outcaster and Kiora, but then it also discounts other cards in your hand, which suits this game plan really well, right? Devotion is all about mana acceleration, cheating on mana, and this just fits perfectly with the deck. So even on its own, it discounts all of your cards by 1. So you can have curves where you go Utopia Sprawl or Birds of Paradise on turn 1, into Temur Battlecry on turn 2, and then that should discount Cavalier of Thorns to 4 mana, which you can then cast on turn 3. You know, it makes Fanatic 1 mana, gets your Outcaster and Kiora's down to 2 mana, which is huge. Then once you hit, you know, a second 4-power creature in play, Outcaster and Kiora become free because, you know, Outcaster gives you a mana back, Kiora can give you an untap. If you have a land with a Utopia Sprawl or a Nykthos in play, then this is just like a ritual. And same sort of thing with Outcaster, to be honest, right? If Outcaster costs 1 and you have other cards that can be discounted in your hand, then it kind of works as a ritual as well, because then you get an extra discount off the Temur Battlecry, which is huge. And then if we get discount to 3, Cavalier of Thorns becomes 3 mana, Storm the Festival becomes 3 mana, which is insanely good as well. And then the other insane thing with this deck with Temur Battlecry is it also discounts Storm the Festival's flashback cost as well. So say we have a Temur Battlecry and we play Storm the Festival and we hit another Temur Battlecry and a 4-power creature, there's a good chance that you can just flash this back immediately for 3 or 4 mana. So it really accelerates your ability to have those kind of bursty combo turns that Devotion is really known for. And then the thing that is really broken with Temur Battlecry is its interaction with Karn. Now I want to give a quick shout out to Aspiringspike, as always, one of the best deck builders out there. I'll have a link down to his channel in the description. But he has recently been working on an idea where you can use Temur Battlecry alongside Karn to enable an infinite combo, which is pretty sick. So the way that this works is you need to get a discount of 4 with the Temur Battlecry. So this is achievable either with 2 Temur Battlecryers or Temur Battlecry alongside 3 other 4-power creatures. Then once you've got that, you've got a discount of 4. So Karn becomes free. And then the way you combo off, you need Karn for free, and then at least 1 other card that you can cast. Then the way this works is you cast Karn for free, you minus, and then you get Ancestral Statue from the sideboard, which is also free because it gets discounted by 4. You can then repeatedly cast Ancestral Statue over and over again, bouncing itself. You want to do that 50 times, which sounds kind of ridiculous, but you kind of need to for the combo. Then on the final cast with Ancestral Statue, instead of bouncing itself, you then bounce Karn back to your hand. You can then recast Karn, minus, grab Aetherflux Reservoir, which again is free because of the discount from Temur Battlecry. Then all you've got to do is just cast that final card in your hand or graveyard, gain 50 life off the reservoir, dome the opponent for 50, and you can just one-shot them out of nowhere. And now getting an infinite combo in Devotion isn't brand new, right? We've seen a lot of Devotion decks in the past run Pestilent Cauldron combo, but the big difference between Pestilent Cauldron and this Temur Battlecry combo is just that the Battlecry combo is so much easier to set up, right? For Cauldron, you need 2 Karns, 2 Kioras, and a bunch of Devotion. For this, all we need is 2 Temur Battlecryers and a Karn in hand, basically. Or, you know, Temur Battlecry and, you know, a few other 4-power creatures. It's not too difficult to set up because it does just fit so naturally well with what Devotion wants to be doing. And I feel like this is huge because it solves one of the 2 main issues that I've had with Devotion. So in my opinion, 2 biggest issues with Devotion, first of all, is a lack of good cheap interaction, which naturally gives you a bad matchup against decks like Auras and Wizards. And while Temur Battlecry does help somewhat because you now have an infinite combo that you can try and race to in those matchups a little bit better, those matchups are still really difficult. I think Auras still accounts for maybe over half my losses so far. I think I'm 1-5 or 1-6 against Auras with this deck. But, you know, that's always been an issue with Devotion. I think that is just your bad matchup and there's nothing you can really do about that other than hope you don't queue into it. But every deck has a bad matchup, right? If you're playing auras yourself, you really struggle against the very interactive Sorin decks, for example. So, it swings and roundabouts. You can't have good matchups against everything. However, Devotion in the past has typically struggled. The second big issue in my mind is that it takes a while to close the game out, which naturally gives you a bad matchup against combo and also decks that have good reach in the mid to late game via cards like Goblin Bombardment in the sacrifice decks or burn spells from Is It Wizards as well. And I do feel in those matchups that getting an infinite combo that's relatively easy to set up really does improve your ability to race against other combo decks. Now, obviously having Khan, in previous Devotion decks, you could just use Khan to grab a hate piece, but winning the game on the spot is so much better than using Khan to grab a hate piece, because if the opponent is on a combo deck, they're very likely to have answers to your hate pieces, especially post-sideboard. So this really does, in my mind, fix one of the big issues with Devotion, whilst also just improving its proactive game plan as well. Even without the combo, the curves that you can do with this card, just with what Devotion wants to be doing anyway, is sick. You can go, even if you don't have a 1-drop, right, you can go Fanatic of Ronus on turn 2, Temur Battlecrier on turn 3, turns on Fanatic of Ronus, reduces everything, so you can tap Fanatic to cast maybe like an Outcasted Trailblazer, which costs 2 mana, gets you 1 back, and then that discounts another card in your hand. So then if you got Cura then costs 1 mana, so you can cast Cura for 1 mana, untap Fanatic can retap for 4, and then everything in your hand is discounted by 2, so you can cast Storm the Festival for 4 mana, you can cast Khan for 2, and this is the other great thing about it, even outside of the combo, Temur Battlecrier discounts both Khan and the card that you grab off Khan as well, which is really, really huge as well. So Battlecrier just feels like it really improves the proactive game plan of the deck and just introduces this combo with a card that you naturally want to be running in the deck anyway. Now, obviously the big drawback of Temur Battlecrier, especially in this deck, is that it costs green, blue, red, which is obviously a big issue in a deck that is primarily mono-green. Now, splashing a second colour in Devotion has been basically free for the entire time, and I think with the tools that we have to produce off colours of mana, we can still do this very consistently without needing to change too much of the deck, because we already have Birds of Paradise and Utopia Sprawl, which the deck wants to be running naturally anyway, which gives us off colours. We can very easily run Stomping Ground and Breeding Pool. Obviously, we take a little bit more life off our mana base, but because they both still enable Utopia Sprawl, they both still tap for green. This is basically free as well. And then we can also get Mana Confluence in the mana base. Obviously, the downside of running this is that it can't be used with Utopia Sprawl, but we still have 15 forests, which is the minimum, in my opinion. Obviously, you could go 14 for the bare minimum, but having a hand where you can't play Utopia Sprawl on turn 1 is an absolute nightmare. So I like going for 15. And then, obviously, yeah, like I said, the downside of Confluence, you do take more damage, and you also can't use Utopia Sprawl with it, but it does just make it a lot easier to cast a Temur Battlecrier. You can also use the Trailblazer to produce mana of off-color, so I haven't found it an issue to cast this. The only issue is that obviously Nykthos is a colourless land, so there can be some slight tension there, but between Birds of Paradise, Utopia Sprawl, Confluence, Shocklands, and Trailblazer, I feel like we have more than enough ways to consistently cast this, which is huge. So the rest of the list is kind of the usual suspects that you'd expect from Devotion. So obviously we've got the early ramp, Utopia Sprawl, Birds of Paradise, and Fanatic. You basically want to mulligan any hand that doesn't have at least one of these. Sprawl definitely the best because it's much more difficult to interact with, and it works really well with Cura, but Birds of Paradise gives us another turn 1 play that also enables the Battlecry, and then Fanatic is obviously excellent on turn 2 because we have a bunch of turn 3 plays that immediately turn it on. We can tap it for 4 mana to cast another 3-drop, or we can go Cura, untap it, net mana, cast a Cavalier straight away. So, and then also having Eternalize is really big as well. If the opponent does kill it, then it gives us something to do. It also can't be countered, which can be relevant. I've seen a lot of, well, not a lot, but I've seen an uptick in the high noon counterspell decks recently, so the ability to do this around counterspells is pretty big. The Ferocious token also has 4 power as well, which, again, triggers Temur Battlecry, triggers Trailblazer, triggers Cura. So, again, Fnatic, absolute all-star in this deck. Then the 3-drops we've got, obviously we want a bunch of 4 power 3-drops to turn on the Fnatic, but then Trailblazer is another payoff for running a bunch of 4 power creatures because you draw cards every time you, put a 4 power creature in play, which is huge. The plot is also really big at giving you some extra ramp. As I've said, we can go Sprawl into Battlecry, into Cavalier. We can also go Sprawl into Plot, Trailblazer into Cavalier, so it also provides us with some ramp, but the main thing here is just the repeated card advantage is absolutely huge. It gives us another payoff for filling our deck with a bunch of big creatures as well. Works really well alongside the team of Battlecrier, a bunch of good synergy going on here, so yeah, Trailblazer, excellent card in the deck. And then I felt like I wanted another 2 of at the 3-drop slot for a 4-power creature so that we can very, very consistently turn on Fanatic of Ronus, and also, obviously, we want more 4-power creatures for our Battlecriers and the Trailblazers and stuff. And Scrap Shooter felt like a really good option here because it gives us main deck answers to artifacts and enchantments, which is very relevant right now, you know, taking out Bombardment, Birthing Ritual, Pithing Needle, bunch of artifacts and enchantments that are important to be able to remove. Because of the mana base, we can't really afford to run Besage You here either, so, you know, having this does give us main deck access to removal there. Having Reach is very relevant against a lot of decks right now as well, so Scrap Shooter just feels like the best option for me. I did obviously consider the triple green 3-drops that work very well with Nykthos, like your Old Growth Troll and your Pelucranos, but I actually kind of prefer Scrap Shooter here because it does get some benefit from the discount on Team of Battlecrier, whereas those other 3-drops wouldn't. Then Kiora is just like the centerpiece of this deck. It's unbelievable. It's another payoff for us running a bunch of 4-power creatures. We can untap Nykthos to generate a bunch of mana. We can untap lands equipped with Utopia Sprawl. We can untap Fanatic of Ronus. You know, if you've played Devotion, you know how good this card is. Then we've got Karn, which is obviously part of the combo, but is just an integral part of Devotion anyway. Gives you a really flexible option of cards to pull out the sideboard to help you win the game from any position, whether you're behind, whether you're ahead, whether you're against a combo deck and you need a hate piece. Karn is just great. Obviously, naturally good against Devotion as well because of the passive ability, but, you know, Karn is obviously a Devotion staple. Then Cavalier, same thing, Devotion staple. Reach is really big. 5/6 is really difficult for red decks to ever remove. Helps you find Nykthos, and then very importantly in this deck as well, we can use Cavalier to find off colors. You know, if we've only got one of the off colors for Team of Battlecrier, we can help, you know, find a Confluence or find whichever off color we're missing for our Shocklands. When it dies, we can get back cards from the graveyard as well. So obviously, you know, Cavalier just a staple. And then Storm the Festival obviously has been a staple with Devotion, but now with Team of Battlecrier, it becomes even better because it gets discounted and it can find combo pieces to help you keep going. If you do whiff and it goes to the graveyard, but you find more 4-power creatures, the discount can enable you to just recast it straight away. So Storm the Festival has naturally been one of the best cards in Devotion, but now becomes even better in my opinion with Team of Battlecrier. So kind of gone over the sideboard, the mana base, my bad, already. But I want to quickly go over it. 22 lands. I've seen some Devotion this run 21, but I like 22 because, you know, we want to keep curving out for sure, and we also, you know, running more lands gives us more looks at finding off colours for Team of Battlecrier, which is pretty big as well. And then kind of gone over the mana base already. We obviously want the 4 Nykthos, we want enough forests to be able to use Utopia Sprawl, but we also want enough off colours to be able to cast Team of Battlecrier, so nothing too flashy going on with the mana base really. Then the sideboard is all dedicated to Karn the Great Creator, so I basically never sideboard with this deck, which is nice if you're playing best of 3 because you don't have to think too much about sideboarding. Obviously there could be some matchups where you do bring in 1 or 2 wish targets, but for the most part I just submit straight away. So the sideboard options we've got to pull off Karn here. Tormod's Crypt just gives you graveyard hate that you can cast even if you don't have any mana spare, which is huge. Aether Spellbomb is kind of a new interesting one that we get access to in blue. This is kind of a replacement for Portable Hole, which is very important against Auras. I do think Auras is probably your worst matchup with this deck. And Aether Spellbomb does give you a way to interact with them at instant speed that you can tutor, which is pretty big. Obviously, you do have to have a blue mana for it to be effective, but, you know, for the most part, we can get a blue fairly consistently thanks to Birds of Paradise, Sprawl, or one of the lands as well. So yeah, not as good as Portable Hole for the most part, but getting access to removal at instant speed is something that Devotion doesn't normally get, so it's pretty nice. Haywire Might, tutorable artifact and enchantment removal. Pithing Needle, very good against, you know, Sorin, Goblin Bombardment, any sort of activated or triggered ability, you know, Shifting Woodland. A lot of decks that you can use this against. Stone of Erech is your best card against the sacrifice decks, really, whether that's Mardu Sacrifice, where it shuts off Ajani Flipping, it shuts off all of their death triggers from Unlucky Witness and Marionette Apprentice, and is also obviously great against the 4-color Samwise deck as well because it shuts off all those death triggers, in addition to Cauldron Familiar to stop them comboing off as well. Liquid Metal Coating, really important in, first of all, matchups where you get a very fast start. Regardless of the matchup, if you get a Karn down very early on and the opponent doesn't commit much to the board, you can just use Coating to start stone raining their lands. If you're not familiar with this card, basically, if you mine this card and you can put it in play the same turn, you want to set a stop during the opponent's upkeep, and then you can use Liquid Metal Coating before they get a chance to cast sorcery speed cards to turn one of their lands into an artifact, and then because of the Karn passive, they can't activate it. And then if you have Karn's plus ability available during your turn, you can use Liquid Metal Coating during your turn to turn one of your opponent's lands into an artifact, and then plus the Karn on that land to turn it into a creature, and then because it has 0 mana, it dies immediately. So you can basically just use Karn as a repeatable stone rain every single turn, which is huge. Now, the matchups where this is mainly useful is against control specifically, right? If you can resolve a Karn against control and start Liquid Metal Coating their lands, that's basically a way to win. Now, having said that, that's not as guaranteed as it was in the past, because control is typically Jeskai and typically more proactive with stuff like Flage right now, so slightly less effective than it used to be. But this is just the best card in the Mirror Match. Mirror Match is kind of a nightmare with this deck, because it does just come down to play draw, comes down to who just has the more busted start, really. But Liquid Metal Coating on Karn just gives you a way to, if you can get this down and then Liquid Metal Coating their Nykthos or their land that has Utopia Sprawl attached to it, and then you can start stone raining their lands, that's just a great way to win the Mirror Match. Then we've got Phyrexian Metamorph, which is here for a few reasons. Obviously, it's just flexible. You can copy your opponent's stuff with this, which is really huge, especially against Sorin decks. Using this to copy Saint Elender is absolutely brutal against them, so having a tutorable way to beat Elender there for 3 mana, for cheap, is very, very good in that matchup. But you can also copy your own stuff. Like I said, to combo off, you often need 2 Temur Battlecriers, so you can often use Metamorph to copy the first one that you've got if you have another Karn available, or you can just set up for the combo the following turn. And you can also use it to copy the One Ring as well, right? The One Ring is a really effective card, especially against decks like Auras or just aggro decks in general. So if you're worried about dying to the One Ring, you can often just use Karn to either get Haywire Might and exile it, or use Phyrexian Metamorph to make a copy of it, and then, you can just keep the copy and not take as much damage off the burden counters there as well. Then we've got Aetherflux Reservoir and Ancestral Statue that are basically just exclusively here for the combo. You can potentially, if you don't have the combo, cast Statue for free, bounce Karn just to get an extra 3/4 in play if you're worried about the board, for example. But in general, you don't really want to do that, because then that shuts you off the ability to combo, because you don't have Ancestral Statue in the sideboard anymore. But mainly here for the combo, really. Then we've got the One Ring, which, kind of talked about a second ago. This is a good way that we can potentially beat Auras. I think your best game plan against Auras, if you don't just have the combo straight away, is to go One Ring, start drawing a bunch of cards, try and copy the One Ring with Phyrexian Metamorph if you can, and try and work your way to a position where you can just pull off the infinite combo, and the One Ring is just great at buying you time there. Also just generally good against aggro decks in general, especially against Izzet Wizards, because the issue with using Karn against Izzet Wizards is they run Flame of Anor, so even if you grab, anything else really, like a Kramer's Memorial or a Godfarrow's Statue, they can potentially use Flame of Anor to get rid of it, whereas the One Ring having Indestructible gets around that and protects you for a turn as well, which is pretty big. Then speaking of which, Godfarrow's Statue, this is a card I've been going back and forward on, but I feel like whilst Lotus Field is a part of the format, I really want to have this in the sideboard. It's obviously really good against control as well. One other way that you can just shut up the game against control is getting this, but specifically against kind of Storm-based combo decks and Lotus Field in general, I feel like it's worth running Godfarrow's Statue, because it's just an absolute beating against them. The next up, we've got Mindslaver, which is just a really, really good card. Like, initially when this card first came out, I thought it would be win more in Devotion, but there have been so many situations where no other card gets me out of a situation, but Mindslaver does. At worst, it's basically just an extra turn spell, because then you can just use Karn again the following turn and see an extra card, but getting to control the opponent during their turn is so powerful. And obviously with Temur Battlecrier, we can much more easily cast and activate this in the same turn, right? If we have a discount of 2, then we can go Karn for 2, Mindslaver for 2. We only need 8 mana in total to be able to activate at the same turn, so Mindslaver, really important card. Then we got Chroma's Memorial, which is basically another way that we can close the game out. This, if we don't have the combo, or the infinite combo at least, if you are having these big stormy turns where you do, get multiple Storm the Festival down, Karn grabbing a Chroma's Memorial is just the best way to win from that board. Give your whole board haste, just attacking for one, for a single turn. Cityscape Leveler, flexible removal, just answers anything, can be repeatable, which is pretty huge. And then finally we've got Portal to Phyrexia, again another card that I didn't have in initially, but there were just a number of situations where having access to this card is really big, especially if the opponent has 3 creatures in play. So that's the deck overall, and while looking at this list, it might not seem like the deck is that much different, because you're there's just one new card, basically. It does feel like it changes how the deck plays quite a lot. It feels like it improves the proactive game plan. It feels like it shores up a number of bad matchups. Now, having said that, Auras, Wizards, still very, very difficult matchups for this deck, but it feels like it improves the matchup against basically everything else. And I also do feel like Battlecry does improve those matchups somewhat as well, because it does improve your ability to get Khan down, get one ring down, and also the ability to race to an infinite combo helps a lot as well. Next up, I've got some gameplay that I was playing with this on the ladder so you guys can see it in action. If you've got any questions or comments about the deck at all, definitely let me know in the comments. Hope you enjoyed the video, and I'll catch you all in the next one. Big up. Okay, so we're on the play here. And, I mean, I'm kind of tempted to keep that one because we did have one lander with Birds of Paradise, but if the Birds of Paradise dies, it's just so risky. Now, this, again, exactly the same situation, but I'm much more likely to keep that on a 6, right? I don't really want to keep a 7 that dies to just a Fatal Push, but here I think we can get away with it. Okay, so Birds of Paradise survives at least, but they do shock in a Godless Shrine here, which makes me think they probably have a piece of interaction. Okay, they just cycle a Troll. Interesting. So, from what I've seen so far, I'd imagine they're probably on White-Black Sorin. Interesting to see... Okay, I was going to say, interesting to see the Troll of Khazad-dûm. Presumably that's because of Emperor of Bones. Here I'm just going to jam the Team Battlecrier because that turns on Fanatic of Erroneous. For next turn, it discounts the Kiora as well, which is pretty big. Okay, they are on Sorin. So presumably they have the Elender here, but Elender doesn't actually... Ah, they got Vein Ripper. Interesting. Well, we can just win here, right? Because we just have the combo. I mean, we would need enough to cast Cavalier this turn, but we can, right? So now, okay, now we just draw another card. I was going to say, now we go Khan minus. What we would normally have to do is just play Ancestral Statue 50 times, but now because we have a second Khan, just to save time, we can play Reservoir first, then play Khan, and now we can just minus and just loop Ancestral Statue. So typically, if you don't have a second Khan in this situation, what you would need to do is, before you grab the Reservoir, you statue loop 50 times first, then use the statue to bounce Khan on the final cast Khan again, get Reservoir, and then when we cast Cavalier, we gain 50 life off the Reservoir, and then dome the opponent for 50. But obviously to save time, it's a lot easier to cast the Khan first. So in terms of sideboarding, again, I do try to think if there would be, any Khan shooter targets that would be better in the main deck. But for the most part, I think it's just better submitting, really. I honestly can't really think of many matchups where you would ever want to bring in sideboard cards, honestly. Which is nice because it makes sideboarding a lot easier, especially if you're a best of one player, think of moving into best of three. So this hand is very sketchy, but we've got a game plan, and we also very importantly have enough lands, which is important against the discard spell deck, right? If we weren't against a Thoughtseize deck, I would almost certainly mulligan that. Although having said that, it is a different dynamic because they have a better proactive game plan than a lot of the previous Thoughtseize decks, but okay, interesting. So we got Sprawl here. And then I think, just in case they have any non-basic land destruction, I'm going to put the Sprawl on a basic here. And because we have Breeding Pool, I think we can put it on green rather than anything else. Okay, interesting. Okay, Khan is a nice draw here. So we've got a few options here. We could go Battlecrier, we could go Trailblazer Plot, which I think I like going for here, because then we can go Trailblazer into Team of Battlecrier, discount Khan and the card that we get off it by 2. And also, their big proactive game plan here is Sorin, which typically relies on the opponent having interaction. Okay. They found a Peddler, which is kind of rough. If they just got the Dollmaker back there, I don't think that would have been too much of a big deal. But having said that, Juggernaut actually works pretty well with our proactive game plan here, right? We can go Trailblazer, Battlecrier, and then Juggernaut will not only cost 2, but it will also draw us a card here as well. Oh, wow. Now we draw Kiora. So now we draw an extra card off this this Juggernaut. And we've got Nykthos as well. We don't have quite enough to activate it yet, but we can go Nykthos. I'm just trying to think if it's worth holding on to the Birds of Paradise in case we draw a Khan here. I mean, if you go Paradise first, you'd obviously get the same amount of mana back off the Nykthos here, but I'm thinking it might be worth holding on to the Birds of Paradise just as a card to cast in case we go infinite, which it looks like we can here, right? We've got the Khan, so now we can just go Khan. I was just trying to think if it's worth going Trailblazer first. Okay, opponent just keeps it up. So yeah, we got there. Nice. That felt really good. Okay, so we're on the play here. And yeah, this hand's great. Sprawl on 1, into Cura, into Fanatic on turn 2, which is busted. And then we've obviously got Cavalier. Hopefully we can mill over a Storm the Festival off that. And then we're very much off to the races. So here, I think we go for a red. We've already got enough green lands in hand that we don't really need to worry about that. And then obviously we've got the breeding pool. So if we do draw... Oh, wow. Okay, that's huge. So if we do draw Battlecrier, we already have the mana straight away. We can afford to put this on green. Now Cura kind of pays for itself. Oh, okay. And then we go Fanatic. And yeah, this is a really, really broken start here. Okay, they do have a strict Proctor, but... I mean, we can just pay for that very easily, right? So lead on the Cavalier here. We can obviously pay 2 for the Proctor triggers, which I think I'm going to do for both, to be honest. I feel like we're already in a good position here. Wow, if I'm another Nykthos, do we really want that? We can't activate it immediately, I don't think, so we probably just get another land instead. We've already got red, so I think we can afford to go for a basic here. And then we can just play Fanatic. So unfortunately we didn't find a Storm the Festival, but we're still in a really good position. Okay, so opponent has Arena of Glory. Oh, wow, okay. I was going to say, if Proctor survives this turn, which it likely will, then, well, before we draw Storm the Festival, then it's huge. So I'm going to activate the Cura first here, just in case we hit another Cura we want to put into play off the Storm. They Ramon, but we just have more than enough mana to immediately recast it. That's kind of funny. Okay, we get Battlecrier and Fanatic here. And then I think we'll keep paying to draw. Might as well. Then Battlecry discounts the Storm the Festival in the graveyard. Now we find Khan and... I think I'm going to go for another Cura here. You know, obviously getting another 4-power creature in play gets us close to the combo here, but opponent's tapped out. We should be good, right? We can just get literally anything out of the sideboard. I'm just going to get Mindslaver here. I think that'll be the most effective card, and then we could always just grab like a God Pharaoh statue next turn. Oh, auto tap. Oh, okay. Thank God. I mean, we could still play a land for the turn, I think, but auto tapper just made, you know, it's one of those moments where it just makes your heart sink when it just completely taps the wrong thing for you. But yeah, that felt pretty good. This matchup, I feel like we're favoured, but I feel like you have to have somewhat of a fast start here because you need to get underneath their counter spells. Now, I'm kind of surprised to see Remand game 1. I think, you know, one of the notable things about this version of Jeskai Control being the most popular control deck in the format is that they don't tend to run that many counter spells in the main deck, which is a good thing for Devotion. But even if they do, you can very easily, you know, sneak stuff underneath counter spells in the early game, and then... sorry, I just got to think about this for a second. I think we put back Storm the Festival here. Right, they're likely to have counter spells against us. We're pretty far away from casting it. I would much rather have a backup Birds of Paradise here. I would, with this Trailblazer, I also want the Scrap Shooter to draw a card as well. So, there is a Proctor. Honestly, not sure. I think I just want to jam one of the 3-drops here. And I think I'm just going to go for the Scrap Shooter here because this prevents them from attacking. It makes Flage not as bad, right? If we go Outcaster and they Flage it straight away, that's pretty bad. I mean, having said that, if they have Flage, we're kind of in trouble anyway because they already have Arena of Glory. But opponent's struggling for lands here, which is obviously great for us. Then we Khan and... I mean, getting liquid metal coating is really risky because if they take out the scrap shooter, they can attack Khan down to 1. But even then, if Khan survives at 1, we can still liquid metal coating and plus, which is pretty big. Okay, they found the Sacred Foundry. Do they have Flage? No, interesting. Okay. Okay, so they got the 3rd Proctor down, but I don't think that should really matter in the situation we're in right now. Okay, so I think we just start using the coating here, right? And then we can get a 2nd scrap shooter in play. I want to go over the Arena of Glory just so that, you know, I'm worried about Flage here. Taking out Arena of Glory makes Flage a lot less threatening. Then we can get another scrap shooter down as just another blocker, because then, you know, with 2 scrap shooters down, it's definitely not worth the opponent attacking with the Proctors here. Okay, opponent just keeps it up, so we got there nice. Obviously, opponent did miss a land drop there, but this matchup has felt pretty good so far. Okay, so we're going 2nd here. And yeah, this looks good, right? We got Sprawl on 1 into either Trailblazer or Battlecrier on 2, which is great. Okay, Meticulous Archive, so probably against Control, if I had to guess. Gonna use the Sprawl on red just because we need it for Battlecrier here, right? Okay, Tamiyo into a white land. So they could have Fragment Reality here. So I think I'm just going to go for Cura instead. I mean, Fragment Reality on our 3 drops isn't too bad because we can potentially find Fanatic of Ronus, which is pretty sick. But, you know, while they don't have Counterspell mana up, I want to get Cura into play here. Huh, interesting. So it doesn't look like they're running red. Could just be straight blue-white control. Oh, okay. Narset is potentially an issue, but I mean, we still have pretty explosive turns we can use here. Stifle. I mean, Stifle is interesting without red. I presume they're not running red, or they would have got it off the Lorien revealed, but I wonder what they're using Stifle for here. Interesting. So we can just go for Storm the Festival here, which I think is definitely the play while they've got a Narset in play, while they're tapped out at the very least. This is a very bad hit, though. I'm going to... I don't know whether to go for a land or a Birds of Paradise here because... you know, Birds of Paradise is obviously another creature in play. It's another pip for Nykthos as well, but I'm worried about board sweepers here. You know, it doesn't have any power either, so it doesn't make it offensively any good either. So I think I just like going for lands because it makes us less vulnerable to board sweepers, basically. And they do have Fragment Reality, so they could take out Utopia Sprawl. They could take out Trailblazer here. I think we just lead on attacking with the Trailblazer. That kind of forces the Fragment Reality, I guess. They probably want to prioritize keeping Narset around, especially while we have a Cura in play. Okay, so no surprises. They do Fragment, and we hit Birds of Paradise instead of Fanatic, which kind of sucks, but, you know, it is what it is. So here I think we should lead on the team Battlecrier. Well, actually, no. Oh, that was a punt. I should have activated Cura first, because now we're not playing around No More Lies. Yeah, that was really bad. I definitely should have untapped the forest first. Okay, Reprieve. So we got away with it, thankfully. But yeah, I definitely should have activated the Cura first. But now they're tapped out, we can just go for Khan. And I'm just going to plus on the clue token here. And now I feel pretty good, right? They can obviously stifle the Khan trigger, but now it's at 6. We get at least 2 activations before it, you know, potentially kills itself, which is pretty big. They could obviously have Get Lost, which would make the plus much worse than the minus, but... And we could have obviously also used Khan to grab a coating, like we, you know, is probably the best card in this matchup, but... I don't know. I feel like having options this turn is pretty big, especially with Battlecrier. Because, you know, we're only 1 4-power... Well, we have enough 4-power creatures in hand here to enable the Khan combo, right? So we can go Trailblazer, decline here. And then we can go Cure. No, I think we'll activate Nykthos first. Then go Cura untap. Oh no, Then we don't have a final card for the Khan combo, though, which is kind of annoying. But, I mean, I guess it doesn't really matter. We don't need to combo here. We can just go Mindslaver, I think. So we can go Scrap Shooter here. Now we've got a discount of 3. We can activate Nykthos again. We could just go for Storm the Festival, to be honest. And I think I will. I think I'm just going to go minus... Or we could just go Mindslaver first. I've got a lot of options here. So Mindslaver costs... We could go with Chroma's Memorial. Portal to Phyrexia. We'd need to pay the Proctor tax. Could go Godfarrow's statue. I mean, I think there's a number of cards here that just basically win us the game. I've just got to figure out what the best one is. I think Mindslaver probably, right? It only costs 3 and we can activate it the same turn. And then we get a good look at what they're running and we can still get another powerful card next turn. Okay, opponent scoops that up before they reveal information, which makes sense. Again, not really any matchups where I sideboard with this particular variant anyway, so just going to ship it back. So interesting to see. I'm a bit confused with Stifle because I'll get action in it. If they're running Lotus Field, then that makes sense. But it feels kind of mad to me to be running Strict Proc to Lotus Field Stifle and not running Flage. Like, I don't really get what the advantage, other than a slightly cleaner mana base, is of sticking to straight blue-white, because Flage just works so well with all the cards that you're already running anyway outside of Lotus Field. It works great with Stifle and with Strict Proctor, so a little surprised. So this hand is obviously not great. I mean, one of the things against control is you do typically want to have a good curve out, but you know, we can go Fnatic on 2. We've got a lot of good draw. You know, we have a curve out and we have lands. So I think this is worth keeping. Okay. So I don't really care too much about Spell Pierce. If they remand this, it's whatever. Now we can put the Sprawl on red. Now we can cast the Battlecry, which is huge. Okay, there's Reprieve. Sure, that's fine. So interesting what we want to go for next turn. We got 4 mana. Okay, we got 3 mana. We can still go Battlecry though. Oh no, we can't anymore because of we've lost red, right? So that makes the decision quite easy, right? We just go Fnatic here. And then if it survives, we can go Cavalier. Okay, they got Null... Okay, so they're running Null Drifter with the Stifle, sure. Just not the red splash for Flage. I guess that makes some amount of sense, but I still think it's worth... I still think the red splash is absolutely worth it. Flage is just so good. Okay, there's Consign. So they do get to keep Null Drifter around, which is not bad. So I would have loved to find a red land there, because then we could have gone Battlecrier into Storm the Festival there, which would have been sick. But, you know, it is what it is. We've got Cavalier in play now. We've got an extra... You know, we're getting 4 mana off the Fnatic, which is pretty big as well. I don't know if the opponent can afford to attack with the Null Drifter. Ah, okay, they Fragment Reality. We get a Trailblazer, though. That's not bad. So, produce a green. I presume we just sack a basic here. Doesn't feel great sacking lands this early on in the game, but, you know, Trailblazer and Fnatic are both excellent cards here, so... Okay, so they fragment the Fnatic, which makes sense. But we can still go Khan. We can still eternalize the Fnatic here as well, which seems pretty good because that draws us a card off the Outcaster. It also can't be countered. So hopefully we can find a 5th land here. It would be excellent if it's a Stomping Ground. Okay. Unfortunately, don't find it, but... I feel like we're still in a good position here, right? We've got the 4/4 token that can produce 4 mana. We've still got the Storm of Festivals here. If Birds of Paradise survives, we can use it to cast the Temur Battlecrier. So, you know, I feel pretty good. It'd be interesting to see if they do attack. I think I'm just going to set the Birds of Paradise. It does cut us off Battlecrier, but I'm really worried about a board sweeper here. Right, it's a disaster if we sack a land and then they go like Wrath of God or Divine Purge or something. They just auto-wire the token. I mean, I'm very happy about that. Ooh, okay, there's the Stomping Ground. Now we can pop off. So now we go Temur Battlecrier. Trailblaze is basically free here. Well, actually, it's like a ritual, right? And now we can just combo off, right? Scrap Shooter makes Khan 0. And because we have a second card, we can just go Reservoir off the first, and we don't have to cast Statue 50 times, which is always nice. So now we go Khan, just grab Statue. So sweet, we got there, nice. That felt pretty good. Okay, so going first here. And yeah, this looks good, right? We've got Birds of Paradise on 1, into Battlecrier on 2, potentially into Cavalier on 3 if it survives, which is always a great curve. You know, hopefully we can find a Storm the Festival off the Cavalier. And then, obviously, that would be discounted in the graveyard, which is huge. So, see what the opponent's on here. Hopefully they don't have a removal spell. Okay, Shadowy Backstreet, so probably Sorin deck if I had to guess. But either way, we get down the Battlecry here, and then if it survives, we just go Cavalier. If it doesn't, it's kind of awkward. I mean, obviously, it depends on what we draw, but we've already got enough lands here to cast Cavalier normally if the Birds of Paradise survives anyway. Okay, there's Overlord, so yeah, probably going to be Sorin. And they do find a Sorin, close to whiffing there. Oh, interesting. Okay, so we found a second Battlecry. I think we just go for Cavalier here first, though, see what we find. Okay, unfortunately, we don't find a Fanatic or a Storm the Festival off the mill there, which is a little bit awkward, but we can just go for another Cavalier next turn, give us another look at both of those. Okay, they do have Sorin. Let's see if they got a Lender here. They do. Interesting to see what they pick here, though, because, I mean, Faith's Fetters on Cavalier maybe, but that doesn't seem that great to me, really. I mean, I guess Cavalier can block pretty effectively, but if they start using the Sorin plus, it's kind of rough. Oh, okay. That's a huge draw. So now we can go Trailblazer into Cavalier, see what we hit. We do hit Storm the Festival. Wow, okay. And we draw a card. Interesting. So we can go Utopia Sprawl here. But I don't know if this is risky or not, because if we hit a Khan off a Storm the Festival, I don't know. Then, you know, there's a chance that we could potentially combo off here, but okay, we find Battlecry and Trailblazer, so that's huge. Hopefully we can find a Kiora here. Oh, we found a Khan, yeah, okay. Opponent just scoops it up. So again, no real need to sideboard here. Again, I've been thinking, you know, because with previous Devotion decks, there have been some matchups where you maybe want to board in a Sky Sovereign or a One Ring or something against the aggro decks to draw it more naturally rather than relying on Khan. But the addition of the new team of Battlecry kind of mitigates that in a way anyway, because, you know, if you've got Battlecry down, you can reduce Khan and reduce the card that you get off it, which makes it a lot easier to get your One Rings and we're not running Sky Sovereign in this build, but, you know, those sorts of cards. Okay, got to ship that one back because we don't have any early ramp. This looks pretty good, though. And we probably should have put back a Breeding Pool here, actually. Okay, they do have Thoughtseize, which is a little rough on a mull to 5, but wow, they let us have the Birds of Paradise, which I'm kind of surprised about. Maybe they have a Fatal Fish, or we saw Vanishing Verse last game. That's obviously a very good card against our deck as well. Wow, okay. That's pretty huge. So I think we just go for Kiora here. I was tempted to go for Fanatic, but I think getting Kiora in play is pretty good here, especially if they're holding up a Vanishing Verse, because that can't kill Kiora. Okay, they got Failure. So we'll see if they've got the Overlord as well. If they do, that could be a little bit rough, but, you know, we've got a very good turn next turn, right? They need to find... I think they need to assemble Sorin and Lender pretty quickly. Oh, well, they just scoop it up. I guess they are pretty far behind. You know, they do get to scam the Overlord, but we just get Cavalier down next turn, which kind of shuts that off. So, kind of surprised at the early concede, but we'll take it. Okay, so we're on the play here, and can't keep that one because we've got no ramp. Wow, okay, can't keep this one either, unfortunately. Got to ship it back. Okay, this one's keepable. It's a little bit awkward that we have Nykthos here with the team of Battlecrier and the Birds of Paradise, but I think that might be a card I put back here anyway, right? I think we put back Storm the Festival and Battlecrier, and then we can go Paradise into Kiora, hopefully into Cavalier, mill over Storm the Festival will be the best setup here, I think. Okay, no interaction on the Birds of Paradise is huge. Drawing another Nykthos is a little bit awkward, but it does guarantee that we can cast Cavalier next turn, which is pretty big. Oh, wish good luck. Okay, so it looks like the opponent's playing my the Irencrag feat deck that I posted fairly recently. So here we want to make sure we tap the Nykthos before playing an extra one. Just get Cavalier down here. So this matchup it's scary for sure, but I feel like Team of Battlecry should improve this matchup because you get access to the combo, which really helps, you know, give you a way to close the game out. Because the Irencrag feat deck, in this matchup specifically anyway, the Ugins are the main thing. Obviously, the Sais are very good at holding the ground down, stop you attacking in, but the Ugins are the main thing, especially Ugin the Spirit Dragon. If you can get that down early and sweep the board, it's pretty brutal. But getting access to an infinite win the game combo the turn you come down is really difficult for the Irencrag feat deck to stop because most of their interaction is sorcery speed, right? Wow, okay. Not drawing particularly well here, unfortunately. I mean, we've got all the mana in the world, though. If we do draw anything, if we draw a Khan, if we draw a Storm the Festival, even an Outcast, a Trailblazer, you know, draws us a card. If we find another 4-power creature, potentially draws us another one, we can snowball the game pretty quickly that way as well. So we do have a few decent top decks here. I guess any 4-power creature is actually pretty good with Kiora, right? We'd love to see a Battlecrier as well. So we know they have a Spirit Dragon, and they've got, how much is that? 5, 6, 7 mana, right? What have they got here? Is this creativity, maybe? Oh, it's an Ugin Eye of the Storm. So that takes out the Cavalier. That's pretty rough. I mean, thankfully I was going to say, thankfully they shouldn't have another thing to cast. Oh, okay. I mean, that's a very lucky draw for us, for sure. But, you know, we didn't draw particularly well the few turns before. So we go Battlecrier, and I think we just go... I mean, we could go Kiora to untap, but Scrap Shooter discounts more cards. Fnatic gives us more mana. I think we just go for the Battlecrier here. And then we should just be able to recast Storm next turn. I mean, again, we know they've got Ugin here, right? So maybe that's a little too slow. But I don't know. We'll see. I mean, they've used treasures to get this first Ugin into play, so we don't really need to worry about that second one unless they have land into Irencrag. Oh, even then they don't have enough mana for Ugin the Spirit Dragon at least. But I mean, I feel fairly confident here. I think worst case scenario would be they plus to make mana and play another 7 mana Ugin. Oh, I guess they could have another Spirit Dragon here, actually. If they go activate and then just have a second Ugin Spirit Dragon in hand. Okay, they've got another Ugin Eye of the Storms. That does give them 2 triggers, so they do remove the Battlecrier and the Scrap Shooter here, which kind of sucks. And then presumably they just draw a card here. Wait, they got more mana? They got more things to cast? Or what could this be? Oh, it's a Fable. Okay, sure. I was really worried it was going to be another colourless card, then we'd lose the Birds of... Well, we'd lose the Cure, I guess. So then they crew up the vehicle, attack down Cure, that's fine. Okay, another Sprawl, so we'll play that first. And then play that on red. Now we can go Battlecrier. Oh, okay, Trailblazer is a sick draw here, so we can go Trailblazer. And we still have a Kiora activation available here, right? So I think we'll lead on that. Okay, we found Khan. And we'll just go for another Battlecrier. And now if we draw another castable card here. Oh, wow, we didn't. That kind of sucks. And, oh,
We can do this. We must.
So I'm just trying to think how much mana we have available. So we can still cast Nykthos, and we can still untap the land with the Utopia Sprawls on it. So I think that's the line here, right? I guess we don't even need to play the Nykthos, right? We can just play an untapped forest here. I guess we've... I know the deck, so I know they don't have any artifact removal, but I should have activated the Cura first there, just in case they did. But either way, we can now Mindslaver here. Okay, yeah, opponent just scoops it up. So again, I feel like this... I mean, it is... They do have good plays against you for sure. 7 and 8 mana Ugin are both pretty brutal. But if we can try and set up to go for one big combo turn, that's really difficult for them to stop. Now again, having said that, you know, their Ugins are very good at keeping us off the setup cards needed to do that. So, but I definitely feel better with this with the team up version than regular Devotion in this matchup. So this hand's not bad. Obviously, we're missing some top end here, but going turn 1 Sprawl into turn 2 Cura is always sick. And if we draw another card that we can cast early on, like if we draw a Fanatic, that'll be excellent. So here I think... I mean, I'm going to put it on red, but I probably could have put it on green here, if I'm being honest. But I feel like I wanted to put it on red because it then becomes easier to cast off Cura untaps. I don't know. Maybe I'm too lost in the sauce with that thinking. Okay, so they've got Relics of the Rebel Belt here. So they're ramping. So, I mean, again, we don't really care too much about Sire. The main thing I'm worried about are the Ugins. But thankfully, it looks like the opponent's missing lands, which is huge for us. Missing lands with the Defeat deck is rough, for sure. Okay, no Storm the Festival, unfortunately. No Fanatic in the graveyard either. Okay, they play the extra Signet. So how much... well, we'll see if they got a land here first. Okay, they don't. Miss a land again. That's kind of rough. And we draw a Scrap Shooter, which... I mean, it does draw them a card, so it will get them closer to a land, but we're worried about Ugins here, right? We just want to keep them off Ugins as much as possible. So I think we're probably going to gift them a card. Don't think it matters which Signet we take out here, really. So this is tempo positive, card advantage negative, but their whole game plan revolves around ramping into very expensive cards, and they can, on the current board state, that would be really difficult to beat. If they got down a Spirit Dragon, then we just have a hand of Cura and nothing else. So I think it makes more sense to focus on taking out their ramp that's already in play. Wow, they missed lands again. Okay, that's rough for the opponent. Scrap Shooter's no, sorry, not Scrap Shooter. Battlecry is a good draw here, though, right? Get to draw a card off Cura, discount other stuff in our hands. Wow, okay. Not drawing particularly well, but, I mean, we're applying a lot of pressure early already here, right? Opponent goes down to... Wow, opponent goes down to 1. Surely they have to block. Now they can't use Confluence or Karplusan Forest for coloured mana. I guess, wait, they've got a food token, but they'd have to... The only reason that not blocking makes sense there is if you need the treasure token. But if you need the treasure token... Sure, like, for them to tap the Confluence for mana, they need to crack the food token first, which is what they're doing here. But they've wasted 2 mana to get an extra 1 mana, right? If they just block, then they don't need to crack the food. They can just use the Confluence anyway. I mean, I guess they would be at a lower life total here, so maybe that's what they're thinking about. Okay, so this looks like creativity to me. Creativity X equals 2, which is going to be difficult to attack past, and we are kind of out of gas here, but we do have a lot of good draws, especially now we've got the Battlecrier in play. Okay, there's 2 Sires. Oh, okay. Okay, there we go. Now we get double Trailblazer. Now we're off to the races here. Right, Storm the Festival only costs 5 in the yard. We draw another one. We've got Nykthos. We got Karn. Yeah, okay, we're good. We're good. So we get a green. Go Karn. And we can probably just grab Reservoir straight away here if we want to. Yeah, okay, opponent just keeps it up. So we got that. Nice.